There's a specific kind of loneliness that has nothing to do with being alone. You can be in a room full of people who love you. Family at the table, friends laughing 2 feet away, coworkers who think you're great. And somewhere underneath all of it, you still feel like you're translating yourself. Like you brought the wrong language. Like everyone else got handed a single instrument at birth, and you walked in carrying an entire orchestra you don't even know how to introduce. If that just hit something in your chest, stay with me. Because what you're about to hear isn't a personality quiz. It isn't a label. It's a confrontation with something God did to you before your mother ever felt you move. My name is George, and I want to be honest with you before I go any further. I'm not here as a scholar. I'm not here as anybody's expert. I'm here because I've sat in living rooms with people who looked exactly like you describe yourself. Accomplished on paper, restless in private, and I've watched what happens when they finally see what God actually placed inside them. I've watched men who'd been told their whole lives they were too much weep at the kitchen table when they realized too much was the assignment. What I'm about to walk you through is 7 signs. 7 markings the Lord puts on a person when He seals them as what some are now calling a rare polymath, a soul gifted across many domains, set apart, hidden in plain sight until the season ripens. The 1 in 144,000 isn't here to flatter you. It's here to wake you up. Scripture talks about 144,000 who are sealed, marked on the forehead, set apart, holy unto the Lamb. I'm not telling you you're literally one of those from Revelation. I'm telling you the pattern of being sealed, being numbered among the few, keeps showing up in God's people. And the same Spirit that did it then still does it now. So if there's a weight on you that you've never been able to put down, lean in. Because I think the next 20 minutes are going to explain a lot of things you've been carrying alone. Sign 1. You were never able to pick just one thing. Think about Joseph for a second. Just Joseph. Most people remember him for the coat, the dreams, the pit, the palace. But look closer. This was a shepherd who could interpret visions, a prisoner who could administrate, a slave who could manage an entire household, a foreigner who could run an empire's economy through 7 years of famine. One man. So many lanes. And every single lane was anointed. That's you. Maybe not in scale, not yet, but in shape. You sat in school, and they kept asking you what you wanted to be when you grew up. And every answer felt like a lie, because every answer was only one piece of you. You wanted to write and build and lead and heal and create and teach all at the same time. The teachers told your parents you needed to focus. The well-meaning aunt told you to pick a path. And the whole time, something inside you was whispering, they don't understand. None of these are wrong. I'm just bigger than the question. That wasn't ego. That was prophecy buried under bad advice. God did not make a mistake when He laid 5 gifts in one chest. He doesn't believe in the assembly line you were raised inside. He believes in stewardship, and He gives to some servants 1 talent, to some 2, and to some 5, and to a very few He gives 10 and tells them to multiply every single one. Sign 2. You absorb things at a speed that disturbs other people. This one is delicate, because if I'm not careful it sounds like bragging. So I want you to hear it the way I mean it, not as flattery, as a clue. You pick things up fast, not because you're better than anyone, but because something in you was wired to recognize patterns the way some people recognize faces. You watch someone do a thing once, and your hands already know how to copy it. You read a book, and the ideas are still working in you 3 months later, connecting to ideas from a totally different book you read 6 years ago. You walk into a new environment, a job, a city, a church, a circle, and within a week you understand the unspoken rules better than people who've been there a decade. And that's exactly where the trouble starts. Because Daniel had this same gift. Scripture says God gave Daniel and his 3 friends knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom. And Daniel, on top of that, had understanding in visions and dreams. Daniel didn't ask for that. Daniel was a captive, a teenager taken from his home. And in a foreign court, with foreign gods and foreign food and foreign expectations, he absorbed so quickly that the king kept him close. 10 times wiser than the magicians, the text says. 10 times. Now read what happened next. The other officials couldn't handle it. They watched this young man rise and they did not celebrate. They schemed. They went hunting for a fault in him, and when they couldn't find one in his work, they invented one in his worship. They literally rewrote a law to trap him, because his giftedness exposed their mediocrity. If you've ever wondered why people who used to like you cooled off when you started doing well, there's your answer. The anointing on a fast learner threatens the comfort of a slow one. And God doesn't apologize for the speed He built into you. He just asks if you'll keep your knees on the ground while He raises your head. I want you to sit with that picture for a moment. Daniel praying with his window open, knowing the law, knowing the lions, and opening the window anyway. That's what a polymath who hasn't forgotten where his gifts came from looks like. He didn't hide his speed. He didn't dim his light to keep his job. He just kept his face pointed toward Jerusalem and let God handle the rest. The lions got muzzled. The schemers got the pit they dug for him. And the king ended up writing a new decree that the God of Daniel be feared throughout the whole kingdom. That's what happens when the marked refuse to pretend. Sign 3. You feel things other people don't even register. You walk into a room, and you can tell within 30 seconds that something is wrong between two people who haven't said a word. You sit across from someone telling you they're fine, and your stomach already knows they're lying. Not because you're suspicious, but because the air around them is doing something the air around honest people doesn't do. This isn't a gift you advertise. You can't put it on a resume. Most of the time, you can't even explain it to your spouse. But it's there. It's been there since you were a kid. You used to come home from school, and your mom would ask how your day was, and you'd say, "Fine," and go to your room. But really, you'd spent the whole day absorbing the moods of 28 other children, and you didn't have words for any of it. This is the same sensitivity Jeremiah carried. The prophet who wept. The man whose insides churned because he could feel what God was feeling about a nation that had forgotten him. Jeremiah didn't choose that sensitivity. He told God plainly, "I'm too young. I don't know how to speak. Find somebody else." And God said no. "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you came out of the belly, I sanctified you." Hear that. Before. Not after you proved yourself. Not after you cleaned yourself up. Before. The sealing happened before the breathing. So when you feel things that other people seem to walk right past, stop apologizing for it. Stop calling it weakness. Stop calling it being too sensitive. That sensitivity is a sensor. God installed it on purpose. He needs eyes on the ground who can read the room. Sign 4. You see connections between things that look unrelated. Most people think in straight lines. Cause leads to effect. A leads to B leads to C. And there's nothing wrong with that. The world needs people who can run a straight line. But you don't think in lines. You think in webs. You're listening to a sermon about forgiveness, and suddenly you understand something about a conversation you had with your father 15 years ago. You're reading about ancient kings, and you see how it explains a problem in your workplace this Tuesday. You're driving home and a song on the radio unlocks the meaning of a dream you had 3 weeks ago, and you almost have to pull over. This is the mind of Solomon. Not the wealth, not the wives. The mind. The man who could speak about trees from the cedar of Lebanon to the hyssop on the wall. The man who wrote proverbs about ants and lions and lazy men and faithful friends and rivers and clouds and silver and gold, and saw the same divine fingerprint on every one of them. Solomon's wisdom wasn't a collection of facts. It was the ability to see how all the facts were secretly the same fact, sung in different keys. That's how your mind moves. And it exhausts you because you can't turn it off. You're at dinner trying to be present, and your brain is 6 layers deep on something the host said in passing. You lie down at night, and the ceiling becomes a chalkboard you didn't ask for. I'm going to tell you something hard. People are going to misread this gift your whole life. They're going to call you scattered. They're going to call you intense. They're going to say you overthink. They're going to wish, sometimes out loud, that you would just relax. And the truth is you can't relax, not in the way they mean, because God did not seal you to be a still pond. He sealed you to be a river. Rivers don't apologize for moving, and rivers carve. A river doesn't decide to carve a canyon. It just keeps moving, faithful to its own current, and one day the landscape isn't the same anymore. You have been carving things in your own life without realizing it. Conversations that changed someone. Small obediences that mattered more than you'll know this side of eternity. The mind God gave you was never supposed to be still. It was supposed to shape the ground it runs over. Hungry. Listen, I have to pause here, because if you've made it this far, and these signs are landing in you like stones dropping into deep water, there's something I need to say plainly, the way a friend would say it sitting across from you. What you just experienced was not content, it was a mirror, and mirrors demand a decision. If you are ready to go to the root, to finally understand why you think, feel, and perceive differently from everyone around you. The secret protocol carries the 7 keys that reveal what God placed inside you before you ever drew your first breath. Full audiobook included for every moment of your day. plus the awakening map as a bonus. The 5 stages of spiritual awakening mapped with clarity, showing where you are right now and what the Spirit is releasing in this season. Link pinned in the first comment. Not for much longer, and you did not make it to the end without a reason. Now, back to the signs, because we're only halfway, and the next 3 are the ones that explain why your life has felt the way it's felt. Sign 5. You carry an authority that makes some people uncomfortable before you even open your mouth. This one took me years to understand in the people I've walked with. So bear with me. You're not loud. You're not pushy. You're not the person dominating the room. In fact, a lot of you are quiet, watchful, the kind who sits in the corner and listens before you speak. And yet, somehow, when you finally do speak, the room shifts. Conversations get serious. People stop fidgeting. Even people who don't like you straighten up a little. That's not personality. That's weight. Spiritual weight. The Bible calls it glory in some places, and presence in others. It's the residue of having been in the room with God gnawed when nobody was watching. Moses carried it. He came down off the mountain, and his face was shining, and he didn't even know. The people had to tell him. They were afraid to come near him, because the time he'd spent with the Lord had marked him so visibly that his own brother couldn't look him in the eye without a veil. Moses didn't manufacture that. He didn't go up the mountain planning to come down impressive. He went up to hear, and the hearing changed his face. If you've ever wondered why bosses sometimes treat you like a threat when you're trying to be helpful, why certain church leaders smile politely while their eyes go cold, why people who barely know you have strong opinions about you, this is your answer. They're not reacting to what you said. They're reacting to what's on you, and what's on you wasn't put there by you. So you can't take it off. Don't shrink to make small people comfortable. Moses didn't put on the veil for himself. He put it on for them. There's a difference. You can be gentle without being diminished. You can be humble without being hidden. Sign 6. Your gifts attract attacks that don't match your visibility. This is one of the most painful patterns I've watched in people who carry this kind of marking. And I want to handle it with care. Because I know some of you have lived it for a long, long time and never had words for it. The size of the opposition you've faced doesn't match the size of the life you've lived so far. You haven't been on television. You haven't built an empire. You haven't shouted from any rooftops. And yet, strange things keep happening. Friendships that should have been simple keep getting complicated. People take offense at things you didn't even mean. Doors that should have opened easily stay stuck for years. Family members carry old grudges that don't quite add up. You've been through seasons where it felt like everything decided to break at the same time, and you couldn't figure out why you specifically were getting hit so hard. Because honestly, your life isn't even that big yet. Here's the truth. The attack is not against where you are. The attack is against where you're going. Look at David. Before he ever wore a crown, before he ever ruled a kingdom, he was a teenage shepherd boy out in a field with sheep, and lions were already coming for him. Bears were already coming for him. He hadn't fought Goliath yet. He hadn't been anointed publicly yet. He was just a kid singing songs to his sheep, and the enemy was already trying to take him out. Why? Because the enemy could see the oil that the prophet Samuel hadn't even poured yet. Hell saw the king before Israel did. If you have walked through more than your share, more loss, more betrayal, more confusion, more battles in your own mind, and you've wondered why you specifically, this is part of why. You were marked. The ceiling came with a target. The promise came with an opposition. And the opposition doesn't prove that God is absent. It proves that God is serious about you. David didn't fight the lion because he was strong. He fought the lion because he had to learn how to kill what God was going to use him to kill on a bigger stage. Every attack on you right now is also a curriculum. The Lord doesn't waste the wounds of his chosen. And think about this. When David finally stood in front of Goliath, he didn't pull a new weapon out of nowhere. He pulled out the sling he'd been using on lions and bears while nobody was watching. The same sling, the same God. What had been a private lesson became a public victory. That's how the Lord works with people he's sealed. He builds you in the field before he shows you on the stage. So if you're in a field season right now, overlooked, underestimated, don't despise it. Heaven is loading the sling. Sign 7. You feel an assignment you can't quite see yet, and it won't let you rest. I left this one for last because it's the one I see most often in the people God brings across my path. And it's the one that's hardest to talk about because it sounds either crazy or arrogant, depending on who's listening. You know you're here for something. You don't know what. You've known it since you were small. There's a thing inside you that won't let you settle. You've tried. You've built careers. You've achieved goals. You've ticked off boxes that were supposed to make you feel like you'd arrived. And every single time, after the celebration died down, the same quiet voice came back. That wasn't it. Keep going. You've made peace with mediocrity for a season. Almost. Then God woke you up at 2 in the morning with a thought you couldn't shake. You've tried to convince yourself the dream was unrealistic. Then a stranger said one sentence in passing that hit it dead center. You've tried to outrun it with comfort, with distraction, with busyness. And it keeps coming back, gentler each time but never leaving. That's the way the call sat in Paul. He was Saul before he was Paul. Educated, successful, respected, climbing the religious ladder with both hands. And on a road to a city he was going to in order to do what he'd been trained to do. Jesus stopped him in the middle of the dust. One light, one voice, one question that didn't even need to be answered. And the man who had everything together became the man who would suffer more for the gospel than almost anyone in the New Testament, and would do it gladly, because he had finally seen the assignment he was sealed for. You may not have had a Damascus Road moment. Most of us don't. For most of us, the call doesn't come as lightning. It comes as a dripping faucet. It comes as a refusal to be satisfied. It comes as a holy discontent with anything less than what he actually made you for. If that's been you, if you have spent years feeling like you're standing in a doorway you can't quite walk through, hear me. The doorway is real. The delay is not denial. The God who marked you in your mother's womb is not confused about timing. He is preparing you for an assignment that is going to require the exact combination of gifts he buried in you. Every gift, every scar, every strange detour, every quiet 3 a.m. He's not wasting a single piece of you. The reason they can't handle you isn't because you're better. Let me say that as plainly as I know how. It isn't because you're better. It's because you're different. And differentness, true, God-shaped differentness, disturbs systems that depend on sameness to keep running. You're not a problem. You're a question the room hasn't learned how to answer yet. And the room never will, until you stop apologizing for being the question. So what now? Now you stop asking the people around you to confirm what only God can confirm. Now you stop measuring your worth by how easy you are for others to digest. Now you take the 7 signs you just heard, and you let them stop being a list and start being a mirror. Now you go somewhere quiet, your car, your closet, your kitchen floor at 11 p.m., and you tell the Lord the thing you've been afraid to say out loud. I think you made me for more. I think you marked me. I'm tired of pretending I'm not what you said I am. He's been waiting on that sentence longer than you know. You're not crazy. You're not too much. You're not a glitch in a perfect human assembly line. You are a steward of an inheritance that most people will never see. And the seeing of it is going to cost you the version of yourself that wanted to fit in. Let that version die in peace. It served you when you were younger. It can't carry you where you're going. Before I let you go, I want to ask you something specific, not a generic question, not drop a comment below, a real one. Out of the 7 signs I just walked you through, which one was the one that broke you a little? The one where you had to put the phone down, or your hand went to your chest, or you felt something old and heavy finally have a name. Tell me which number, and tell me, in one sentence, just one, what you've been carrying alone underneath it. I read these, and other people who feel exactly like you are reading them too. You're not alone in this anymore. You never were. You just didn't know who else God had also sealed in the same silence. I'll be here.